It can be. Really, it depends on you. If you have a good attention to detail, if you are fully in when you come to work, then security is going to be a good career for you. Um, I myself started out doing fire watch and night watch for $6.85 an hour. It was quite a while ago. And I have risen all the way to the lofty post of director of training throughout the years. And I've managed to do that, I will say, in part due to the good people who mentor me. Um, you have a term that is sometimes used derisively to describe those of us who've been in security our entire lives. They call us lifers. If you can find a lifer, you have found a really good resource. Most of us are really only interested in coaching you. So it really depends what you think you're going to get out of security. If you think that security is lights and sirens and drama and all kinds of fun, you're going to be very disappointed in your career because security is hours and hours of boredom interrupted by a few moments of excitement here and there. But if you're somebody who can show up and constantly and consistently be observant and you want to help people in calm ways, then you are going to love security. You're going to leave here feeling fulfilled. I think the majority of my days, I can go home thinking about a way in which I concretely helped somebody. And that is all the reward I need, really. The outstanding events, the stories that I'm able to tell are, really few and far between. There's a lot of distance in between where you're doing some very, very routine work. In your normative day, I am going to say a word that we don't like to say in security. It's actually very quiet. That's a superstition we have in security. We don't tend to like to use the Q word because the moment it does, the universe is always listening and it will dump something unusual on you. But in your normative day, you're going to show up, you're going to do a shift handover, which means you're going to find out what happened in your last shift. You're going to do a lot of patrolling. You're going to do, in a good facility, you'll do a lot of walking around looking for trouble before it becomes trouble. And trouble does not mean attackers or bombs or fires or violence. It means maintenance issues. You're going to note, for example, a door that doesn't lock properly. You're going to note a light on the outside at night that doesn't activate properly, a motion sensor or just a bulb that's out. And you're going to do a lot of interaction with people. You're going to interact with your immediate supervisor, the property manager, if there is one. You're going to interact, if you're smart, you'll interact with the cleaners quite a bit because they can multiply your observational power. But you're going to do a lot of patrols. And if you are a security professional, you are going to start your reports early. You're going to take the time after noting something unusual to finish a complete incident report and turn that in and file it. And generally speaking, if you read the incident reports or even previous shift reports from other guards, you're going to have a really good roadmap. One of the little tricks that I have is I will go back to one of the most recent shift reports where no incidents happened during the day, and I will actually photocopy that and keep that on my person if I'm brand new to a building. And I will read through and I will attempt to copy what they did almost exactly. Everything they've listed hour by hour, minute by minute in their daily occurrence report. Perfect roadmap for me if I just copy what they did. And I am going to take a moment and isolate the word easy. Now, security as a whole can be an extremely easy job if you're possessed of good attention to detail, if you're a self-starter. If you're somebody who needs to be constantly supervised, there are no easy security jobs for you. If you're somebody who, prefers to just sit around and do nothing, you are going to find a lot of people are going to attempt to supervise you very closely, and you're not going to get that time. The easiest security jobs, if you can stand boredom, And boredom is definitely a part of security work. You cannot have your phones out. I will repeat that ad nauseum. Nothing will drive a security supervisor more insane than coming by and seeing you on your phone. But if you can avoid that temptation, the easiest security jobs are the ones where you are just sitting watching something. There is a job in security called Firewatch, where, for example, maybe a contractor is working on electrical systems and the fire system is not entirely reliable. Those are generally speaking overnight. Um, and all you do is you sit and watch and you take a tour of the premises every once in a while using your nose. What are you using your nose for? You are sniffing for smoke. Because the fire system is unreliable, you turn into the fire alarm system. And you check in with the contractors, make sure they're not burning the place down, and then you go back and you sit down. However, I will say that, like any job in history, the easiest jobs are not the highest paying. I found when I was working, for example, for a very large university, I was surprised at the size of my paycheck. I was pleasantly surprised. It was very good. When I was working those night watch jobs, where all you had to do was stay awake and do patrols, again, that was not too far off of minimum wage. Okay, so in terms of easy, well, it really depends on what your priorities are. If high pay is your thing, then the easy jobs are not for you. So the highest paying security jobs are places where special security is required. For example, when I was working for a housing authority, for a transit system, for a university. However, some of the private security gigs, the in-house jobs, I worked for a while for a firm that was doing digital rendering for movies, and there was some special conditions. That job was extremely high paying. And I was very, very sad when they were bought by one of the mega studios because they brought in their own security personnel, and darn it, it was actually one of the easiest security jobs I've ever had because the people all knew what security was doing, and they were very open, transparent, cooperative, and really, really nice. Plus, they had the greatest food. So the highest paying security jobs are the ones where you are going to have to concentrate. Now, that is definitely an attribute. You're going to have to stand post, being bored, and simply watching for trouble. Uh, Generally speaking, security is not there to take physical action, to make arrests, etc. If you're working in clubs, you will probably not find that they pay very high. Maybe a little off minimum wage, but not a lot. So the highest paying security jobs, if I had to select one, would be working in-house private security. And you do have to have a fairly decent resume before you get invited to apply for those jobs. And the recruitment process is extensive. They will look hard at your background. They will call your references. They will have extensive, sometimes multiple interviews with you before you go to start at the low end of the totem pole with them. Absolutely. One of my security partners only does events. And if you want to help people, being at a music festival, etc., is just going to be your cup of tea. You are going to leave tired because of the long hours, but you are going to leave very, very satisfied. Finding missing children. Boy, does that happen a lot at festivals. And reuniting a kid with their parents is one of the greatest moments. It's a big smile moment that you can all feel good about. Event security can be very challenging. You will deal constantly with intoxicated patrons who can be tough to communicate with. You may, in fact, have to deal with patrons who are violently ill due to excessive alcohol. So bear that in mind. I am not going to try to tell you that any security job is all roses and high pay. But if you're looking to help people, interact with people, and to a certain extent have a good time by observation, you're not there to dance, you're not there to, talk too long to people socially, but you will have people who do appreciate you. And you will have great medical calls that are frequently easily resolved and can help build your knowledge bank. Event security is a great place to practice your spoken word. It is absolutely a fantastic place to start practicing how you're going to deal with people during your career, because you're going to get a ton of experience doing that, especially if you're on the door. Okay, so mobile patrol is very interesting. The majority of the time, like every other security job, it is boring to the point of mind numbing. You will be doing patrols which are just check patrols, meaning that you will go to certain locations at certain times. But in mobile, you will also be responding to guards' concerns. You very often are the first point of contact for anything from scheduling issues, a guard who needs to go home early due to illness, whatever, um, especially on overnight mobile patrol. You're effectively the mobile supervisor for the area. So good judgment skills are definitely required. And self-motivation is definitely required, because you do have to accomplish all your patrols by the end of the night, even if emergencies happen that take a good chunk out of your evening. So I have found that I really enjoy mobile patrol, provided that I buy myself a really good car seat cushion. Driving for that long, ask anyone who drives for a career, and good padding for the rump, etc., is absolutely non-debatably essential. Um, if you take good care of yourself physically and you're in decent shape, you're going to find mobile patrol is a good career. You're by yourself most of the time. There aren't people looking over your shoulder constantly, so there's a degree of institutional freedom there. And yes, absolutely, it can be a lot of fun. If you enjoy driving, if you enjoy monotony, yeah, mobile patrol is probably for you too. I have enjoyed my loss prevention moments during my career. I have had the good fortune of working some very exclusive places for loss prevention. For example, I have worked the Toronto International Film Festival, where we were doing intellectual property theft. A lot of people think of loss prevention as just trying to nab petty shoplifters. But in this case, we were actually given infrared goggles, and we sat in the theater for premieres, and we were catching people who were recording on camcorders, because you could see the beam from the camcorder going straight to the screen. You'd trace it back, you'd take them out. And that was a lot of fun. A little bit of Mission Impossible stuff, etc. If you're somebody who enjoys, I'm going to call it a good hunt, where we're obviously not seeking to do people any harm. If you enjoy hunting, I'll use a Batman reference, evildoers, there is evil afoot in this building. Somebody is trying to steal. I can guarantee that. Anytime you are in a large department store, anything like that, there is somebody who is seeking to steal. However, your first few weeks are going to be dispiriting. I'm going to tell you that you do not yet have the eyes for loss prevention until you have seen your first shoplift happen right in front of you. And when you do, I don't know if it's a function of your confidence or your brain rewiring, but suddenly the scales fall away from your eyes and you can't stop seeing theft. It's everywhere. And when I worked for this high-end retail store, I had a day where I brought $10,000, more than $10,000 back into the store via really good observations. And that, I believe, was the highest paying frontline gig of my career. It was where all the rich people went to shop. We frequently had to take shoplifters out the back because they were famous. There were a solid 3 or 4 times a year where we would have somebody who would be instantly recognizable by the media, who just for the thrill of it, they didn't need it, they had money. Um, we had high-profile politicians, for goodness sake. So is it a good career? Wow, are you going to stand on your feet a lot? Good footwear is essential in security, period. I love my boots. The way fashionista women love their high platform heels, I absolutely love my boots. I let that be a warning to you. You are going to stand. You are going to want to come home and get into a nice hot bath. Take good care of your legs and feet and be in shape if you're going to do loss prevention, because you are going to walk. You're going to get steps like you wouldn't believe. Starting a steps challenge if you're going to do loss prevention, because you'll win by a good margin. Um, Kindness is essential. I want to tell the story of a young man who we caught shoplifting a toy police car. Um, we simply just let him go with a warning. Um, we have also, this is where I think I have encountered some of the most hostile people in my life. Um, for example, you will be routinely accused of racism while you're working loss prevention. And this is not to cast aspersions on any one demographic. This happens from a variety of perspectives and people. Um, but loss prevention at sometimes can involve great hostility. When somebody knows they're caught, they will try anything they can to get away, usually without violence. Um, I admire the people in charge of loss prevention policy, because they have definitely seen that fighting over small items is generally not a good idea and can really expose you to liability and injury, which is completely unnecessary in most cases. Why are we fighting over items? But adhere to your institution's policy wherever you're working. There are some places that say that every shoplifter shall be arrested. There are some places that say you're simply there to observe and make a nuisance of yourself to shoplifters. So hard to give you one good answer, but I have really enjoyed my loss prevention time. I don't think I have ever had a loss prevention assignment that I hated. There are some that are more active than others. Walking around a big box store for 4 hours at a time, and then going to a smaller store for an hour or so. It's some variety in the shift. It's interesting. And again, catching people, you're active. When you're in uniform, you're generally just sort of arriving to help clean up the mess after something's happened, which can be very fulfilling. You're helping a lot of people there. But in loss prevention, you are definitely the definition of proactive. You're going out and finding them before they get to it. Well, I will simply refer you to me. Absolutely. Yes, I have made a good career and a good living out of security. I have helped dozens, if not hundreds of people with even major events. And I have, again, made a living out of security. I have been here so long that I have just, naturally risen to, we won't say the top, to different management careers. I really enjoy training. I'm not sure if you can tell or not. This is where I belong. So if you're able to find your niche, there are some people, for example, I know of one lady who has been on the same desk in the city of Toronto, has not moved for 30 years. Now, the question is, does she feel fulfilled? I have a feeling that she's actually very content right where she is. We have tried over the years to move her into more senior positions as a trainer, et cetera, and she has abjectly refused. She likes where she is. So it can be a full-time career depending on your goals and your level of patience. It does take years for you to get into a really good career. I'm going to start with something that's a little facetious. Um, Act sharp, dress sharp, look sharp, be sharp. Okay? Pride. You absolutely, I don't care if you are a professional ball player or a bricklayer. If you don't have pride in your job, you are not going to be good at that job. Plain and simple. So the first thing you have to have is pride. Flat. I am extremely proud of what I do. I don't ever think, oh, I'm just a security guard. I'm a rent-a-cop. I'm not a police officer. Aw, get rid of that. Flush that thinking. You are here. You're nowhere else. Knock that out of the park and be the best security guard you can be. To me, it's attention to detail. And we hear that phrase all the time from management candidates, and it drives me crazy because they don't explain what that means down to brass tacks. What that means is be willing to do the small things perfectly. There is no place in employment contracts that require you to show up early, because if they did, they would have to pay you for those extra minutes. Frankly, I think that's something security could benefit from down the road, is paying for overlapping shifts. However, what I know is that if I arrive just on time, hey, I am playing catch up for the rest of my shift. If I arrive just 15 minutes early, that's all. When I was living in Toronto, I frequently took transit, and I learned, leave half an hour early. Something's going to go wrong during your trip. So sometimes I was even half an hour early in for my shift. Oh, well, so what? That extra 15 minutes sleep is not as great of an asset as you think it is. So being willing to be there on time, because I could then take my time, relax, banter a little with the off-going guard, have some coffee, start my reports, and they could get to go even a few minutes early because I was there and ready for my post. I will tell you, some of the nicest moments come after working a 12-hour security shift and your relief drives in early. It is literally, they're called relief because when you see them, you are relieved. Oh, good, they're here. Wow, that's awesome. I get to go home a little early. So, other skills that you must have your powers of concentration and observation fully linked and fully activated at all times. A good night's sleep is crucial. If you have bad sleep, if you're trying to run from one job straight to another or from school straight to a job, you're going to find your concentration is going to lapse a little and you're going to miss things. And that's going to make you nervous, and that's going to make your boss come down on you a little. So, your powers of observation and concentration are distinctly linked. I have found that I like to watch professional bodyguards such as the Secret Service in America. Boy, they will stand post for hours unmoving, but they are undoubtedly alert. And the moment something happens, they're ready to respond to that. Why? Because they're sitting there thinking about what could happen with that person who's coming down the hall towards them. They're not being paranoid, they're running scenarios. So somebody who is present at work all the time and concentrating on the next thing you have to do is an absolute asset. You are a spectacular guard if you're able to do that constantly. And I do hold myself to that level and that standard. If my job is to guard a door, wow, new boy, nobody's going through that door that isn't supposed to go through that door. And I'm going to make sure from minute one to minute last in my shift that everybody is getting the same service that they're paying for. So as far as skills go, they're largely intangible, but good handwriting and good communication skills. Newcomers to Canada, we love having you. I don't, for example, speak Farsi. So I absolutely make it a priority to have a guard who speaks Farsi on my shift if there is a local Iranian community, for example. I am extremely grateful for people who can speak other languages. And very often there's absolutely no communication difficulty. However, there are assets that various levels of government and some community organizations have provided if your communication skills aren't the best. Don't let, for example, an accent or the fact that English is a second language keep you from having a great, rewarding career as a security professional. You absolutely have assets that I do not, that we would love to make use of. So don't be afraid to ask what skills your specific employer is looking for. Eagerness. You show up and you want to save the world. That is a wonderful thing. I just speaking personally off the cuff, I am absolutely that guy. I show up ready to save the world if it needs me to save it. But 364 days a year, the world does not need me to save it. So you kind of have to be able to back yourself off a little, pump your own brakes, be able to say, look, nothing's going to happen today that requires me to save the world. And I really want you to keep that eagerness in your hip pocket. Don't let anybody take that away from you, no matter where you work, whether it's in or out of security. But please don't consciously exhibit that at work. Be reserved, be careful with your words, and don't try to tell your bosses how to do their job. That is a big one with new guards. They arrive thinking sometimes that you know better than those of us who are here when you don't know the why of what we do. And I have made that mistake. I have spoken to the wrong people in the wrong tone of voice in my career. And yes, once it did cost me. I found myself transferred off of a post that I liked very much and into an industrial area that I did not particularly appreciate as much. So how you speak to people, especially in your chain of command and your fellow guards, you are not less valuable because you are a rookie. We are absolutely glad to have you. It is fantastic to know that you are here. You are going to take some time for us to make into a very proficient security professional. Understand that when we're trying to give advice, we are not trying to criticize. New guards will frequently take things too personally, and I understand it. It is personal. They're speaking to you. How could it not be personal? But how you react to criticism, constructive criticism, hopefully, and coaching depends on how we're going to react to you. If you react in a hostile manner, I'm probably going to leave you to find out the hard way when the bosses start yelling at you. If I note that you make a mistake and you're humble, humble does not mean lower, right? Humble just means that you are willing to take my advice and you're willing to say, oh, thank you. I appreciate you giving that advice. And then maybe asking me for examples. Can you watch me next time I do that and give me suggestions? Oh, absolutely. At that point, you just made a professional friend for life. There is nothing I won't do for a guard who wants coaching. I will spend extra time with you. I won't seek to go home right away at the end of a shift. Heck, I will even buy the coffee. You want to go out for a coffee afterwards and talk over the shift? You bet. Probably not a beer. Another mistake that new guards make is excessive fraternization. I am not your friend. Okay. On occasion, I have made friends through the security industry, through working with people for years, and we have opted to take that friendship offline, away from work as well. Um, don't try to get everybody to like you. Don't try to make friends with everybody. Do your job in a friendly manner, right? But keep your personal life out of work. I think I was heartbroken when I had to transfer two of my best guards because they started a relationship at work and they wound up screaming at each other in the center of the food court. Needless to say, I was extremely disappointed when I was told in no uncertain terms that they were PNG'd, not welcome at that site, both of them. I was hoping to keep one or the other, frankly, but I didn't want to make that decision, so they said get rid of them both. And that really upset me because in as much as I've ever made friends, I would suggest that those two were friends with me. And I don't think we've ever spoken since to either of them. And they were both good people who just happened to get together, and then they had a really, really bad departure from each other and they made it public. Along those lines, do not date at work. Resist the temptation. If you have shown up at work and you have met the absolute love of your life, it is time for you to go to your supervisor and let them know that because of a personal relationship with somebody, you are going to request a transfer. I will tell you that I have had somebody come and do that, and I bent heaven and earth to get them in appropriate positions so that they would fail upwards. I wrote them a letter of recommendation because I knew this was going to reflect badly on them in the future, informally. That some people would make rumors, et cetera, and say, oh, they left because they were in a relationship, and some people would assume. And I just wanted to nip that right in the bud. I do try to be a good boss wherever possible. And if you come to me with a problem before it becomes a problem, very often we can solve it quietly without anybody unnecessarily being aware of it. But sometimes that may require you perhaps starting over someplace new. But if you hide that from me and I become aware of it, like my two guards having a fight in the food court, well, there isn't a thing I can do to help you at that point. You are going to land where you land, and it is probably going to hurt when you land. So be honest, be transparent, keep your personal business out of work. That goes for any job you're ever working at. It doesn't matter if you're working at a grocery store or for the government. Best piece of advice I can give you is go home at the end of your shift without anything from work. First off, slow down. My word, slow down. Don't try to accomplish anything quickly. If you are moving fast, you are going to make errors of commission, which means you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to make, more importantly, errors of omission, where you forget to do things that need to be done. Don't be afraid to turn to a more veteran guard and say, I don't know what to do next. Or what should we be doing here? What am I missing? Is one of my favorites, and that stood me in great stead whether I am doing event first aid or whether I'm a security supervisor. I have people who've retired from security that I will call and say, what the heck did you do when this happened? Some of them have emailed me back and said, that never happened to me. But here's what I do, right? And your network, your professional network, my LinkedIn is filled with people like that. Even people I've never worked with. I don't really use it as a career hopping tool. I use it as a professional communications tool to speak to other guards and say, whoa, that was a cool story. Hey, what would you do about that? So what should every new security guard know? Show up, look sharp, act sharp, be sharp. Make sure that you are ready for the basics, that you're ready to excel at getting the little stuff done perfectly. Because then you're going to de-stress. You're going to get into a routine. You're going to know, oh yeah, I am nailing all the little stuff. And then when the big stuff happens, you can figure it out from there. Go slow. Get the basics. I am going to take a moment and maybe take offense to the word great. If you are trying to be here to, be a hero, then it's not going to happen to you. You will not get that. Greatness doesn't arrive by you reaching out and selecting it. If you're grasping for greatness, you're never going to achieve it. You have to relax and let greatness come to you. I would not submit that I am a great security guard with a capital G. With a lowercase g, I am a very good security guard. My attention to detail is tremendous. I am really well versed in security procedures. I can make appropriate tactful suggestions to even ego-ridden bosses who know nothing about security. But I'm always on time. I'm on time for a patrol. I'm on time showing up for work. I submit my reports early. I get all the little stuff out of the way. And if you even talk to professional athletes, if there was, a professional athlete from the NHL or NBA or anywhere right now listening to this, I would like to think that they would be nodding their head along with me because they've realized earlier in their career, it doesn't matter what you're doing, ball player or bricklayer, I like to say, that pride in your job involves showing up and doing all the little things with pride, getting them right, taking a moment when you get something right and saying, awesome, on to the next thing. Right? Self-motivation. If we have to supervise you constantly, I don't do this, but some supervisors will immediately ship you off someplace where you are no longer their problem. I feel like we have nothing but time to coach you up. I love coaching. I think it is a fantastic part of being a security industry veteran. I think I need to give back. Um, but I don't have any illusions about saving the world or, that I am, worthy of, medals, praise, and interviews on CNN. I think that just showing up, doing your job really well, unnoticed, uh, not seeking out attention, and then going home. I think that makes you a great security guard. If you look at a rock band, if you notice the bass player, he's probably done something wrong. But if you subtracted the bass player from any musical lineup, you would suddenly have confusion because that steady, sometimes boring beat in the background uh, has been lacking. And you're part of that team. So, what makes a great security guard? When I arrive, it takes me a couple of days to get into the flow. Um, Even in here, while we are recording these videos, to work with the sound techs, to work with management to make sure that we get appropriate but still illuminative content out there to you, with you in mind at the end. The same thing applies to security. I am always thinking about how can I improve someone else's day? How can I help? Because my help is I'm getting a paycheck. That's fantastic. I can afford food. I can afford rent. I can afford a vacation. That's great. I'm going to tell you that, and I'm going to have a little bit of a cynical moment. You're going to have to forgive me. And I'm going to kind of approach this from the negative perspective, which I really try not to do, but I do try to be honest when I'm answering questions. I think it's less that some individuals get promoted faster than some individuals are not willing to accept that they're not doing enough of the right kind of work. We have various stereotypes in security, and one of them is the cowboy. We get people who show up and think that they're only craving the next action. Uh, we get the movie star for whom everything is beneath them. You ask them to go and accompany the cleaners while they're going and getting some debris off the back of the lot, and they roll their eyes as if you just asked them to go around and pick up all the dog poop. Humility will get you promoted faster than anything. Being able to look at a boss who you may even think has completely lost the plot and have respect for their office, if not them, but be able to ask the right questions to tactfully get the answers you need and listen to the way they pose the questions and the way they do business. You will have some bosses that do not wish to deal with security at all, and they will give you a rather testy one-line answer to any question. And very often it will be, well, figure it out. Okay? That happens. That happens in any job, anywhere. All right? So I need you to be a bit of a self-starter. I need you to take responsibility for everything within your scope of operations. When I notice a guard who has great attention to detail, who shows up, funny enough, one of the things I notice is if you shine your shoes. Doesn't that sound weird? Why would you get promoted for shining your shoes? And the answer is you don't. You get noticed for things like shining your shoes, having your tie on all the time, having reports in partway through the shift so that I have information faster, so that when those on high start beating me about the ears for information that I don't have, I have it from you. The short answer is don't make your boss look bad. If you make your boss look good, this is a corporate environment. You are going to get promoted. And that doesn't mean fawning all over them and singing their praises. Good Lord, no. Please don't do that. What I really mean is doing your job properly and making sure that you check in with your boss frequently and say, is there anything I'm missing? Is there anything I can do better? There's that humility we were talking about again. You know, it isn't pleasant to get feedback, right? I don't think very many people actually smile and feel happy when they get feedback because it means that you're not perfect. Okay, we get that. We understand. Now we're all going to get over that together and we're going to move forward. So if you show up without an ego, if your no job is beneath you, if you're willing to do anything we ask, if you're not into office politics, if you keep your personal life separate from work life, you turn in really good, very legible reports, and if you learn ruthlessly how to do your job better, I am definitely going to trust you being in charge of, say, for example, the midnight shift. There are some guards who have quit from under me because I will not promote them. There are some people who I just know are not good leaders. And there's always something quantifiable I can point to. Refusal to do certain details. Inability to delegate, though, right? Being able to ask people to do things, right? When you're the boss is a critical skill to have. We're not in the military here. We don't issue you orders. Now, if you have a boss who just issues you orders, just say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, and get to it, right? There's that lack of ego again. Absolutely. One of the firms that I work with actually has a policy and a connection with the local law enforcement at one of the local colleges. And they actually provide some payment of student loans when you join up. It is a certain percentage of your wages that they give again. And that way they have the best people. Now, is security policing? Goodness, no. Goodness, absolutely no. You can learn a lot of the customer service skills that are going to turn you into great stead in policing. Absolutely, security is a great springboarding. But don't believe that because you had X amount of years as a security guard that you're going to be a great cop. You are going to start at the bottom again with policing. You are going to be humble, and you are going to learn from those who have been there longer than you. Doesn't mean better than you. It means longer. So with that in mind, we absolutely do love seeing law enforcement or law and security administration students show up and look for a job with us. Boy, we love that, absolutely. So it frequently does. Where I work with, I have a client that is in Windsor, Ontario, and very frequently they have students that are going to go to the Canadian Border Services Association. They're going to go to the CBSA. And this security firm is a beautiful pipeline for them, to the point where they actually have several internal courses geared towards bringing their recruits from security through to CBSA mindsets. And it's very well done. The senior leadership, two of them are former CBSA agents. So absolutely it can lead to policing. It frequently does. Heck yes. Heck yes, and it frequently does. It also can lead to personal protection, bodyguarding. If you are somebody who is content when we assign you to a fixed post, we know that you are going to be there when we come by a few hours later to give you a break. And we know that you are going to contact us immediately if you have anything unusual. Boy, can it ever. And private investigations, if you think uniformed security is boredom, if you are expecting to be a TV private eye, let me just counsel you quickly against that. You are going to spend a lot of time sitting in vehicles. You're going to spend a lot of time figuring out how to accomplish bodily functions while you're remaining in a car. You are going to sometimes watch somebody's residence overnight for 3 days and then find out that they were on vacation someplace else. Extremely frustrating, but very rewarding when you're called to testify in court. And very often your testimony provides that gotcha moment where you can almost see opposing counsel surrender, wilt in their seat, and turn to their client and tell them, it's over. This guy just sunk you. You know, you absolutely love those moments. So security does definitely lead to private investigations, but it generally isn't through you requesting or applying. It's generally through management, one of us, coming down and saying to you, hey, you interested in doing any PI work? Then you do have to go through and take a course. Just like security work, you do have to get a private investigations license, and you can only work through an established PI firm. So sometimes the work can be few and far between, but yes, it's absolutely out there for you. Absolutely, as well. Security is a great stepping stone for a variety of careers. I know somebody right now that works as the head of security for a major Canadian bank, and started out working midnights, flying a desk, wearing a security uniform. Now, I am going to tell you that that sort of depth to a career is not routine, and that she was an exceptional candidate, somebody who was continuously looking to higher education. She went and got some security organizations professional accreditation. She went through her ACES, et cetera, stuff like that, that very few of us have. Um, but security management careers, absolutely. Um, if you went back 20 years and said to me that you are eventually going to be the director of a fairly large security firm, and you are going to be the director of training for two other firms at the same time, I probably would have laughed at you. But through the really good trainers that I had over the years, I am just the sum of all the knowledge that has been imparted to me. I was able to put that all together, to the point where I have written two complete security suites for trainers. I am here now. And it is a absolutely tremendous feeling to look back through my career and realize that absolutely, I started out earning $6.85 an hour doing night watch, sitting around in a chair where I was told, nah, you don't even have to wear your tie, and I wouldn't see a soul for the entire night. My only enemy was boredom, but yes, I am living proof that security can lead to corporate careers, and frankly, really good ones. In the fullness of time, I have learned to appreciate being bored at work. Bored does not mean sleepy. It doesn't mean tired. It doesn't have to have the negative connotation that most people associate with the word. Indeed, some of us security veterans will wish each other an extremely boring shift as we do shift handover. Um, Excitement is not all it's cracked up to be. And frankly, I hope that you go through your entire security career incident free. However, please remember, when an incident happens, we don't have to solve the whole incident. We don't need you to suddenly become a transformer and become a cop or a lawyer. No, indeed, we just want you to be a really good security guard, which should let some of the steam out of you a bit. You should sort of relax a bit, be able to take a few deep breaths and say, you know what? Anybody can do this. I can pick up a phone and call the appropriate person. So there's always someone behind you to pick up the slack if you happen to drop a ball, not know what you're doing, or need more advanced help. It's okay. We're going to be there. Help is on the way. So take that in mind every time. Like I've always said, when an emergency happens, my most favorite sound in the world is sirens starting coming for me. So, is it stressful? On occasion. The funniest description I've heard of security work is hours and hours and days of boredom, interrupted by a couple of moments of sheer terror. Sure, yes, there have been incidents where I have needed a bathroom afterwards. Absolutely. So I'm not going to lie to you and say that you're going to have this beautiful sit on a desk, do paperwork, and walk around gaining the admiration of those in your building. Yes, people will be having a bad day. Yes, very suddenly somebody is appearing in front of you, yelling at you, and you have no idea why they're yelling. But you're able to master that and gain some really good pride in yourself by being able to say, okay, hold on, I'm here to help. I just need you to stop yelling at me, okay? All right, I'm a person too. Can we start over? All right, my name's Mark. How can I help you? What's going on here today? And I've learned the same thing when we're approaching people who are injured. I have been Lucky enough to ride along with some fantastic paramedics. I've even gotten my emergency first responder certification. And if you think security work's stressful, try paramedicine. Paramedicine is incredibly stressful from moment one to the last moment. So take a moment and have some perspective. All we're doing is calling the right people to help. 911 is a wonderful thing. There are quite literally thousands of professionals just sitting around waiting to back me up. Isn't that great? That's a really neat feeling. All I'm there is to observe and report. Just say, oh, I see that. I better call for help. So yes, it's going to be stressful. If you manage yourself well, if you get your good sleep, especially in rotating shifts, those can be tough. Your physical stresses are going to mount. You're going to find yourself getting colds more often if you don't take care of yourself, for example. Okay? Nutrition is important. Security guards can stress themselves out by not preparing a decent lunch or dinner at home, because that is a fraction of the cost of going to get fast food. And if you are constantly getting fast food, you are going to find yourself suffering physically. You'll be behind the eight ball constantly, your mental cognition will decline, and you're going to be wondering why. So eliminate everything personally stressful you can. Show up for work early, get your reports out of the way fast, because you never know when an emergency is suddenly just going to gulp up 4 hours of your shift, and you'll find yourself running to catch up at the end. So if you're ahead of everything, you're arriving early, and you're taking good physical care of yourself, I'm going to tell you, you're going to find security work a lot less stressful than somebody who does the opposite. This one takes a second because there can be some challenges, but honestly, every challenge a security guard faces can be overcome by personal initiative. If you are willing to take responsibility for yourself, you're going to find that these challenges are not such big things after all. Imagine when you were little, you would look at what adults do with amazement and think, I can never do that. And yet here you are adulting. You're getting things done, right? Imagine what you've done routinely that would amaze yourself as a little kid. Now think of yourself kind of like that little kid coming into a new career. Are you going to be better in a month? Yes. Are you going to be better in a year? Absolutely. Are you going to be better at the end of your career than the beginning? Oh, it's apples to oranges. You're going to look back and not believe your skill sets that you've gained through the security industry. So, what's the biggest challenge security guards face? Not taking it personally. When I coach you, if you get mad and you allow yourself to stay mad, and you don't take my advice as a friendly gesture, as me trying to help you and improve you, that doesn't mean you were bad in the beginning. If you can't take criticism from the general public, the biggest challenge I think that I have faced throughout my career in terms of personality is that my blood boils when people call me things like rent-a-cop, or they challenge me. Or, for example, in today's politically charged climate, I'm finding more and more that accusations of racism get hurled at me simply because I'm a big guy in a uniform. People will vent their stereotypes on you, and they think that they are free just because you're wearing a uniform to say things that they would never say to a friend or a coworker or a stranger on the street. You are sometimes going to be a repository for people's bad words and bad days. When that first happened to me, when I was at EMS, I had this incredible mentor, and Jill always had a smile on her face no matter what people said. Now she would go and vent about it afterwards, sure. We'd have a good debrief, and we'd, wind up chuckling about the person because we'd realize, what, this really isn't that big of a deal. Jill had this really funny technique that I kind of screwed up my nose at for a little while. When people yelled at her, if it was really bad, she'd go back to the station house. She would select a spare shirt from her locker, change into that, and then she would take the old shirt and she would go shake it out in the parking lot. And she would shake all the bad words out of it. Now, is that actually physically happening? Of course not. There's nothing actually physically changing, but her mindset changed. That was a mnemonic. It was a little shortcut, a little nudge to her brain to say, move on. We've shaken all the bad words out of the old shirt. Old shirt's in the locker for the laundry. So nowadays, I actually bring a second shirt to work. Now, I'll be honest, sometimes that saved me because of sloppy lunch habits. I have on more than one occasion actually dropped something from a sandwich or something on a shirt, and I have been very glad to have a spare white shirt at work. But it's also nice during hot days. I get halfway through my shift, I can reward myself and say, you know what, let's go get a fresh shirt. What the heck, right? Even when I've worked certain places that, require you to pay for part of your uniforms, I have opted to do that after a couple of paychecks and said, give me a spare shirt, please. I would like to bring an extra one to work. But I actually found myself doing Jill's shortcut after absolutely being screamed at over a parking space. It's amazing how the small things will become a flashpoint. They're not yelling at me about the parking space, are they? No, they're yelling at me about all their various stresses in their personal life. And this is when their self-control ripped and all of the bad protoplasm came venting out all over me. I just happened to be the one in the way. It could have been somebody who didn't give them the right change back from a meal. It could have been a parking ticket. It could have been anything else, somebody who cut them off in traffic. There's a frequent one. So what's the best way you can obviate or mitigate those? Self-control. And you'll find that bleeds into your personal life as well. You won't find yourself being as reactive, for example, when your kids are being bad. You're going to be able to just sort of give them that look and say, hey, had a bad day. Let's not continue, huh? And you'll develop your way of talking to people that communicates your intent and lessens your stress. Let me just answer this one really briefly. It's everything. Everything you do is customer service. The people who you are talking to may be members of the general public, but they indirectly do pay our salaries. They shop at the place where we are working, which enables them to hire security. So to me, when I run into a member of a condo board, for example, yes, they are absolutely directly paying my salary. That is an extremely ignorant thing to say to a police officer, for example. I pay your salary. Oh, fantastic. Would you like your 8 cents back for today? And that's for cops to do. Absolutely, they run themselves. We don't do that. Don't reply back to people. I like to joke that I have this little demon that sits in the back of my throat, and every once in a while he says things back that really shouldn't be said. And I need to frequently mentally strangle him and say, you will not say that. So very often, if I'm talking to a coworker afterwards, I will say what I wanted to say to that coworker in the privacy of a locker room or a back office. And that helps get rid of that little feeling a bit. Your customer service is constant, it is never over, and it is always on display. You are in a walking signpost. You are literally wearing the patches of your employer. You can be complained about even as far up to the government and police. If you're not able to be polite to people and still get your point across, you are going to have a rough time in security. Customer service and security is never ending. It is in every single interaction. You are never off the record. Never, ever. Make sure that you are well aware that security's first ethos is always customer service. We are a commercial business. Commercial business depends on their customers being happy. Can anyone argue with that statement? I didn't think so. Remember who pays you. You don't have to kiss their derriere. Please don't. That makes everybody uncomfortable anyway. But make sure that you are professional, that you are firm, but you are polite. Think about what you're going to say before you say it, and make sure the little demon in the back of your throat doesn't get any airtime. I'll be honest, I am a rough interview. I have been known to, when people come into my office, ask them, for example, what Section 494 of the Criminal Code of Canada allows security guards to do and not do. And I expect a fairly cogent response. I don't need them to quote chapter and verse or be a lawyer. I need them to demonstrate to me that they understand that. Because if you're working in security and you don't understand your legal powers of arrest, I just gave you a really good hint as to what 494 stands for. And by the way, if you didn't just go and look up Section 494 of the Criminal Code of Canada, why not? A sense of curiosity is extremely important in security. If you don't know it, you should immediately want to know it. By that same token, if I have people who come in and say, oh, we learned about that, but I don't remember right now, I will simply sit and wait and say, what are you going to do about that? When I leave here, I'm going to look it up. Why don't you ask me? And I'm trying to coach them at that point because I've discovered humility. I have discovered that they're not going to try to bluff their way through when they don't know something. In short, they're going to tell me the truth, even if it makes them look bad. Please, dear God, do not try to snow your employer. First off, we know better. If we ask the question, we already know the answer. Okay? Secondly, we're looking for punctuality. I automatically told my front office staff that if somebody arrives on time for their interview, let me know. If somebody arrives late for their interview by so much as a minute, send them packing. They can come back and they can rebook. They can try another interview later, and this time they will be on time. That I'm just looking for, not to punish them. I'm looking to send them and see if they learn the lesson. I require you to be here and present, ready to do your job when you clock in. If you're working at 10 a.m., I expect you to be there in uniform at the front desk at your post, ready to pick up the phone at 10 a.m. Not walking in at 10 a.m., going to the locker room to get dressed and suddenly showing up at 10:15, which makes me have to pay overtime to the person before you on the shift. Please don't do that. We are looking for very simple qualities. We are looking for ability for communication skills. If you are in doubt about your communication skills, there are plenty of community organizations within all of Canada that absolutely will help you with your English. And we want you to do that. Boy, does that show self-starter. I will take somebody with a little less English quality who went to an organization and learned how to better themselves. Yes, I want that person on my team. Next, I am looking for organizational abilities. The guy who shows up in his flip-flops with his resume on his phone is probably not going to the top of my pile, even if he's an outstanding candidate. The lady who shows up and has obviously made an effort on her appearance, who has a paper copy of her resume ready to hand me, you know what that says to me? Either she has a printer at home, and those printers can be difficult to manage, good for her, or she took the time to go to a Staples, a Kinko's, wherever, print her resume and have that ready for me. She is ready to cover my mistakes. She is ready with everything I need from her. And you know what? Any questions I ask her are going to be pro forma. Honestly, I'm taking her. If I've only got one position, Mr. Flip-Flops is out the door. I am so sorry. Good luck in other employment agencies. But what am I looking for? To summarize, I'm looking for organization, neatness. I am looking for calmness of character. If you walk in the door and your second cup of coffee, this might not go well. Be a little too excitable. But every interview gets the chance they deserve. You know, dress the part, dress for the part you want. You know, act sharp, look sharp, be sharp, do everything you can. And you know what? Have a couple of questions ready, because at the end of a successful interview, I'm actually going to look up and say, what questions do you have for me? Notice what I didn't say. I didn't say, do you have any questions? I said, what questions do you have for me? And if people are paying attention to how I speak as well as what I say, to the actual words, they will immediately go boing. And usually most of that turns into questions about paycheck, questions about paying for uniforms, questions about benefits, etc., things like that. I'm happy to answer those. But I'm more interested in somebody saying, if I want to do this as a further career after security, how are you going to take care of me? What kind of employment are you going to give me here? And I'm able to say, I got something for you, because I already had that in the back of my head anyway. So good luck. Hopefully I'll see you sitting across the desk from me at some point trying to get one of my jobs.